In the wild world of tech and innovation, the line between genius and goofball is thinner than a piano wire. Researchers toil away, conjuring up the next game-changing gadget. Sometimes they're successful, sometimes they're not. From weird gadgets like Google Glass to rejected products like the new Coke. These are weird inventions that were made thinking they would change the world. Google Glass was supposed to revolutionize the way we interact with information. Instead, it just gave us a new way to take creepy photos. The camera and recording capabilities raised serious red flags. People freaked out, businesses banned them, and glass became the ultimate symbol of tech gone wrong. Even without the privacy concerns, glass just wasn't that useful. Its tiny screen and limited functionality made it more of a novelty than a game changer. Ultimately, Google Glass was just a solution in search of a problem. Today, it's a reminder that innovation without practicality is just a fancy pair of glasses. But can we ever be precisely correct about practicality? Even the most seemingly practical products become failures or niche items, and this brings us to the Segway. When it first came out in 2001, many people thought it would change the world of transportation forever. However, this two-wheeled transportation device that was supposed to revolutionize personal transportation ended up as a niche product. How exactly did this happen? Well, we could say it was a money problem at least. The Segway's high price point, limited range, and awkward design made it more of a novelty than a practical mode of transportation. And let's be honest, it's just not that cool to ride around on a Segway. Nowadays, the Segway is mainly remembered as a mall cop's best friend. It's a niche product that never quite lived up to its lofty expectations. Speaking of lofty expectations, can we possibly forget the new Coke that came out in the 1980s? In 1985, Coca-Cola decided to tinker with perfection, introducing new Coke to the masses. The product was hyped in the press and expectations were high. But the reaction was akin to pouring ketchup on a masterpiece. Pure outrage. New Coke was sweeter, smoother, and utterly despised by the public. The company spent $4 million on market research, but they forgot to ask the most crucial question: would our consumers like it? Their consumers responded to New Coke with protests, multiple petitions, and the media had a field day. Over 40,000 calls flooded Coca-Cola's hotline daily, while some customers went as far as threatening to boycott the brand forever. Due to the massive rejection and outcry from consumers, production of the new Coke had to be stopped abruptly and was removed from shelves 79 days after its introduction. Afterwards, the original formula was rebranded as Coca-Cola Classic, making the whole incident a typical example of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As for Coca-Cola, they learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate the power of public outcry or the loyalty of Coke fans. Next on our list is a product that simply failed to amass enough loyal customers: Microsoft Kin. According to some researchers, the failure of Microsoft Kin is a strong argument to back the fact that even the best laid plans can go wrong. By making the mistake of misunderstanding their target audience and underestimating the competition, Microsoft created a device that was doomed from the start. When Microsoft launched the smartphone line aimed squarely at teenagers in 2010, it was as though things were destined to go bad. The ambition to create a device that would revolutionize the way teens communicate, share, and live their digital lives was muddled at its core before it even took off. Despite its sleek design and innovative features like the Kin Spot, a touch-sensitive area for sharing content, the Kin suffered from several fatal flaws. First and foremost, it had a scant selection of apps, which didn't just make the cut in comparison to the iPhone's thriving App Store. And of course, Microsoft's restrictive app policy meant that users couldn't download third-party apps. This severely limited the device's functionality. The last straw was the Kin's pricing plans, which made it a tough sell for parents. So it was no surprise that just 6 weeks after its launch, Microsoft pulled the plug on the Kin. The device's poor sales, lackluster features, and high price points made it a non-starter in the competitive smartphone market. Indeed, it vanished very quickly and was forgotten just as quickly. However, not every invention disappeared without a trace. Some were so far ahead of their time that we can still feel their impact despite the initial failure and embarrassing shortcomings. And that brings us to Apple Newton. In 1993, Apple's CEO John Sculley introduced Apple Newton, a personal digital assistant that promised to revolutionize the way people organize their lives. Unfortunately, it turned out to be a disaster and one of the worst products Apple has ever produced. Apple Newton's handwriting recognition technology was about as accurate as a kindergartner's drawing. It misinterpreted even the most straightforward written commands, leaving users frustrated and confused. Apple's own tests showed that their product could only recognize 30 to 40% of handwritten words. To make things worse, Apple Newton's launch price was a staggering $699, approximately $1,300 today. That's like buying a small car or a costly dinner for two at a fancy restaurant. Needless to say, it was out of reach for most consumers. Apple Newton's ecosystem was also limited, with only 100 apps available at launch. Compare that to the 1.96 million apps available on the App Store today, and you'll get the idea. Apple sold only 50,000 units in the first year, and the product line was eventually discontinued in 1998. Despite the failure of the Apple Newton, it paved the way for future PDAs and smartphones. Its influence can be seen in later devices like the Palm Pilot and, of course, the iPhone. Steve Jobs even credited the Apple Newton as an inspiration for the iPad. Surely you can't always count on a product making any significant changes in the market or leaving a lasting impact. Some of them are just not primed for success. Quibi, the short-lived streaming service, certainly falls into this category. Well, if you are one for dark comedy, Quibi's story is the one for you. It began with great fanfare in 2020. Speculators assumed it would revolutionize the way we consume video content. With Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman at the helm of affairs, Quibi aimed to provide high-quality, bite-sized content for the mobile-first generation. Sadly, the initial buzz soon fizzled out. Despite its ambitious goals, Quibi surprisingly struggled to attract and retain subscribers. Absurdly, by October 2020, the platform had only 500,000 subscribers, a far cry from its projected 7 million. How could this have happened? One explanation is that Quibi launched during the COVID-19 pandemic, when many people were already overwhelmed with streaming options. The platform's short-form content failed to resonate with viewers seeking longer, more immersive experiences. And of course, the world of streaming is highly competitive. The stiff competition from well-established streaming giants like Netflix, YouTube, and TikTok. These platforms offered more diverse content libraries, making it difficult for Quibi to carve out a niche. Things came crumbling down in December 2020 when Quibi announced its shutdown. Just 6 months after its launch, the company returned $350 million to investors and laid off its staff. Since then, the company has made no attempt to get back up on the horse. It was a sad thing to see Quibi disappear into thin air like that because some companies treat failures like this as just another hiccup on the road and keep innovating. Amazon certainly did after the Amazon Fire phone disaster. The Fire phone's failure served as a valuable lesson for Amazon. The company has since focused on developing successful tablets such as the Fire HDX and smart speakers like the Echo. The smartphone was supposed to be a game changer. However, the Fire phone was discontinued in 2015, just over a year after its release. In 2014, Amazon launched the Fire phone, a smartphone designed to integrate seamlessly with Amazon's vast ecosystem. With a unique set of features and a competitive price point, the Fire phone seemed poised to disrupt the smartphone market. However, it ultimately failed to gain a significant market share. The Fire phone's App Store, Amazon App Store, had a limited selection of apps compared to the Google Play Store and Apple App Store. This made it difficult for users to find their favorite apps. Additionally, it didn't have access to the Google Play Store, which further limited its app selection and made it less appealing to Android users. The Fire phone's interface, Fire OS, was a customized version of Android. However, it was confusing and difficult to navigate, especially for users familiar with traditional Android or iOS interfaces. Many users also complained that the Fire phone's battery life was not up to standard, which made it difficult for users to get through a whole day without needing to recharge. And then there was the high price point, which was $199 for the 32GB model, which was comparable to other high-end smartphones at the time. However, the phone's limitations and lack of ecosystem support made it difficult to justify the cost. Another big product failure that people thought would change the world is the purple ketchup. Bizarre condiments come and go, but there has been nothing like the time when Heinz decided to unleash purple ketchup upon the world in 2000. This grape-flavored, purple-hued product was marketed toward kids, but unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. The novelty wore off very fast, and purple ketchup became a weird type of sauce in the eyes of its consumers. What went wrong? Well, consumers expected a sweet, fruity twist on classic ketchup. What they got was considered a confusing, sugary mess. Moms and dads, the primary ketchup buyers, were almost completely indifferent. Kids found them gross. Heinz's promotional efforts, including a website and movie tie-ins, did not help the situation either. As a result, Heinz took their loss and pulled the plug on purple ketchup in 2006 after a 6-year run that was more embarrassing than a middle school dance. The company took a loss but gained valuable insight into what not to do. Purple ketchup may have been a condiment catastrophe, but it's become a nostalgic reminder of the Y2K era's questionable fashion choices. Heinz has since stuck to what they do best, making ketchup that's actually, good. Which of these nostalgic gadgets would you bring back if you could travel back in time? Let us know in the comments below.